game. You don't play to just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
Welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine, whether it is on YouTube or Facebook or over on Roku TV. Regardless of how you are here with us this morning, we are happy to have you. I am Chris, and of course, that right there is Mo. Mo, glad you're back today, partner, because we have ourselves quite the historic Thursday morning in the world of football.
I was thinking about this, yesterday, that Pete Carroll by himself has had an amazing coaching career. And today he's a footnote because two iconic coaches, two Titanic coaches, I feel like they were on a call, Chris. And, I have no proof that they did this, but they are friends. They do have a relationship. They had a working relationship. A lot of people don't know. And I think they said, you know what? You want to call it? He said, let's call it. And one of them, I think Nick Saban is done, but I think Bill Belichick lives to fight another day.
And it's interesting because you almost have the best of all three worlds. In Nick Saban, you have arguably the greatest college football coach of all time. In Bill Belichick, you have arguably the greatest NFL coach of all time, at least in reference to the modern day era.
Agreed.
And then in Coach Pete Carroll, you have one of the most successful coaches who has coached in both the NFL and college. His time at USC, national championship. His time in Seattle, multiple Super Bowl appearances. So you look at that situation and you have the complete opposite ends with Belichick and Saban, NFL and college. And then you have Pete Carroll nestled right in the middle of having himself a great career on both sides of the spectrum in both of those coaches' separate worlds.
It's interesting because Pete Carroll is like the bridge coach. He has the Super Bowl title that Saban doesn't have. He has the national championship, obviously, that Belichick doesn't have. He is the bridge coach. And his career alone makes him a Hall of Fame worthy coach. But again, you wrap that around how dominant both of those guys were, Saban and Belichick, and they're iconic. So it is incredible that in just a couple of days that these three massive, huge coaches are out the game. Or at least, let's say Belichick has moved on from his home of a quarter of a century, because I think he will continue coaching. But the college football world, that is earth-shattering that Nick Saban is walking away.
Let's start with Pete Carroll in Seattle. Reports came out yesterday that he fought to keep his job, meaning that this transition to the advisor role, this transition to a front office role, whatever it is that they put him in, which we've seen this happen before in the NFL. This is the team's way of saying, hey, we like you, but we don't like you enough to keep you as the head coach. But since we do like you, we're going to keep paying you to do something.
Right.
But we need you to take this gracefully. And this is what we're offering you to make you take it gracefully.
Correct.
Reports say he wasn't overly graceful about it. He was very adamant that this should still be his job and that he was still the right person for the job. And ultimately, the team decided no. Mo, I struggle a little bit with the Coach Carroll decision because if you look, and I know that Seattle has missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 seasons, but I also know that Seattle was in a transition from a franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson, a declining franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson,
right,
a defense that was in transition from one of the most elite defenses over a 2 to 3 year run in the NFL to kind of trying to refine their footing. Not a terrible defense, but not a great defense either. And then he gets to the playoffs with Geno Smith, a quarterback who, in the wake of Russell Wilson leaving, people said, well, that might be the stupidest move I've ever seen in my life. You're going to roll with Geno Smith. And then Geno, people wrote me off and I didn't write back or whatever nonsense he was speaking.
I love that.
And they get to the playoffs and you're like, huh, okay, that was something. And then you see them this year. Yes, they missed the playoffs this year, but they were absolutely a competitive team this year.
No doubt.
Despite Geno coming back down to earth and despite Geno missing a few games, and they had to have a backup in there, and they won a couple of games with their backup quarterback. So I look at it from that perspective. And for me, Mo, I have to say, I don't think it's about the on-the-field stuff. I don't think it's about what the team itself was doing. I think it's probably a little deeper. I think it's probably more of a cultural shift. I think it's more of just getting maybe, and I know that he acts like he's 25, but he is one of the oldest head coaches in the league. So I think it's maybe about getting someone younger in there, because if you're going to convince me, well, Chris, this is a what have you done for me lately league, and he missed the playoffs this season and he missed the playoffs 2 seasons I don't buy that, Mo. I don't, given what the team has transitioned through and given what they had at quarterback, I don't buy that this is just we should be making the playoffs every season. He missed them 2 out of 3, so we're looking to shake things up a little bit. I don't think it's that.
And I don't think it's that at all. I think it's an internal, maybe it was an internal disagreement. I don't think it's about coaching. Like you said, you can give me that he missed the playoffs a couple times, but like you said, he has a team that's in transition. You don't have a franchise quarterback. It's great that he was able to coach up Geno Smith and have the year that they had. That speaks to his ability as a head coach. But when you look at the overall talent, they're really in a semi-rebuild, and he kept them relevant. He kept them competitive. They missed the playoffs by a game. Like, they were right there all year. And this is with Geno, who had been their starter, missing multiple games. That impacts your team as a whole. I think it is a culture shift. It is a not the what have you done for me lately thing, but I actually think that even though you and I look at Pete Carroll and I see a guy who's probably fitter than most guys half his age, I really think they looked at him and said, Pete, we like you, but it felt like one of those moves where we want you around, but just not as the head coach. They're looking to go younger. The argument I would make for Pete Carroll fighting for his job is there is no shortage of guys half Pete Carroll's age whose teams didn't make the playoffs or whose teams struggle, who were fired within this season. So I understand him not wanting this, but I think eventually he came around to the idea that he still wanted to be part of the franchise that he so very much loves. And I think he accepted it grudgingly.
Now let's jump to college football with Nick Saban. I think, Mo, this has been the writing on the wall for a few seasons now with Nick Saban. I think that if you look at the shift in the college football landscape over the last 3 years, and he has spoken about it. I don't think he has spoken as candidly as he might actually be feeling about it, but he has spoken enough for us to understand he doesn't like where college football is going. He is not a fan of the transfer portal. He is not a fan of NIL. There are a lot of different things about the game that he is not a fan of. And kind of as not anti-Alabama fans, but kind of as, media members who go, Nick Saban just complaining because he can't win all the time, kind of taking that ilk to it. We look at some of those comments and we go, well, Nick, how do you think people felt all those years playing Alabama when Alabama just got all the good players just because they were Alabama? Now things are happening and good players are going different places, and you just seem upset because you're just not getting all the good players anymore. But Mo, when you get past that and you look at it from a head coaching perspective, a career perspective, and he's getting up there in age, and you look at the breadth of what the college football landscape is now, it almost makes sense to me for Nick Saban, because 12 years ago, 8 years ago, you walk into a young man's living room, and as long as you walk out of there with a handshake, Mo, you did your job. That is what it was to be a college football coach less than a decade ago. Could you sell it in the living room with the parents and the family of the kid that you were trying to recruit? If you could do that, and there were so many college football coaches who could do that, then you were good to go. That's not college football anymore. And I'm not saying Nick Saban can't thrive and be successful in what college football has become, because clearly he can. They were just ranked the 4th team in the nation. They were just competing in the playoffs for a spot in the national championship game. Clearly he can still hang, Mo. That's not what this conversation is. I think this is a lot of Nick Saban saying, I don't want to. I don't want to have to go through this. I don't want this to be the new normal of college football. It's not that I can't find success in it. It's that I don't want to find success in it this way. And Mo, I'm okay with that, because when things change, sometimes when you've achieved what he's achieved and you're at the point in his life and his career that he's at, it's okay to look at a situation and go, I don't want to. And for us to be like, you've earned it. You have earned the right at this point to say, I don't want to anymore. Not that I can't, because again, I don't think that's the situation. I just think he doesn't want to.
7 national championships, 11 SEC championships. He has dominated college football in a way that hasn't been dominated. There was a time when he first got to Alabama, and all people talked about that Nick Saban was Bear Bryant this and Bear Bryant that, rightfully so. That is an Alabama legend. That is the blueprint of Alabama. And Nick Saban eclipsed Bear Bryant. Nick Saban, like you said, he looked around, and you're right. There's no doubt that Alabama will still be one of the top 4 teams going forward in college football. They're going to be in the Final Four again. I'm sure they would have been had he wanted to pursue this further. But he looked at the landscape and he realized it's getting harder. You know, the recruiting process is getting harder. There was a time he could walk into a living room and the family was in awe that Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama, is talking to our son, and he's in our living room saying, our son might be able to contribute or be part of the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's shifted now. Now, when you go in there as the head coach of Alabama or LSU or any other top tier college, you're being interviewed.
Correct.
And the
100%.
You're being, and the kid is saying, what can you do for me? What can you do for my family? Are you going to make me a first round pick? How are you going to elevate and better my life? You're under, and it's a completely different thing, and he doesn't like it. And I totally understand that from him wanting to walk away from that. And I think he's a little offended that it's become this thing where he's got to entertain them. I'm Nick Saban, and you're interviewing me. I think that sea change alone is the main reason why he's walking away.
And Mo, obviously neither of us have ever been in this situation, but I cannot imagine the moments that, and we'll just talk about Nick in general, 7 national championships, and he's sitting in a living room of a high school star. He is sitting in the room of a local high school football star, and you have parents and the kid being like, well, what can Alabama do for me? How are you going to? I cannot imagine some of the questions and comments that he's had to sit through and been like, well, Alabama, and just he has to go through the spiel, right? Alabama's a great school because of this, and we can put you here. And that's not the way college football was 10 years ago. That's not what I would imagine he wants college football to be. And that's a hard pill to swallow, like you said, Mo, from somebody before who was, we want you, and that was enough.
Right.
You want me? Okay. Now it's, Well, yeah, you want me, and so does LSU, and so does Florida State, and Florida State's going to
Exactly.
give me 2.1 million.
Right.
So I'm going to need at least 3 for like that's
Right.
wild, Mo.
Right. That the idea that Nick Saban's sitting there and he's become a used car salesman. And he's like, this is what we can do for you. And the kid was like, well, you do know that Florida is talking about giving me 2.5 in NIL alone. So I mean, I'm good there. Can you guys do better than that? Can you raise my profile? I mean, these are high school kids, Chris, and they're talking to this coach who's this accomplished, and they're talking about their brand. Their brand. I'm a fan of football, and I don't have a problem with kids being able to benefit off their own image and their brand and stuff. But I could understand and respect the frustration someone like Nick Saban would have, where he's like, I'm reduced to becoming a car salesman. I've got to convince you that we're good enough. Alabama is good enough and can do something for your kid's brand and how much money he might make as a member of our friend or as our program. I think that alone is a struggle for him. I think he walked away knowing like it's time. Like sometimes you just know, and he saw the sea change and the shift, and he realized like I don't want to be part of this. Not this version of college football.
And yes, we're being a little hyperbolic this morning. Not all conversations go that way, but you cannot argue. If you look at the last 50 or 60 years of college football, you can very much make the argument that the powerhouses from 50 years ago are very much the same powerhouses in college football today. There are very few exceptions. Oregon is an exception to that rule, right? Oregon really caught fire, 15, 16 years ago and has elevated themselves into that conversation where they weren't a part of that conversation 30 or 40 years ago. But generally speaking, the college football landscape, the dominant teams in the top 50 years ago are still the dominant programs on top today. And that's probably going to be pretty much the same moving forward 50 years from now. Although that isn't going to change, you can't take away from the change that is happening in college football. Because yes, you're going to have the kids who they're still going to want to play at Alabama. They're still going to want to play at LSU. They're still going to want to play at those schools are always going to be the big schools. That's not going to change. But like we said, Mo, the conversation has changed. So the kid who wanted Texas and LSU and Alabama, it no longer is those are the 3 schools that I really, really want. I'm going to meet with all 3 coaches. And then based on what they say to me, I'm going to make my choice. No, we're right. The conversation has shifted for those high-profile athletes of I'm going to meet with all 3 teams, and whichever deal I think is the best that I can negotiate, that's the one. That's the shift. That's where the change comes in. And before it was, we walk into the living room, we tell you how great the school is, we tell you where you're going to fit with us, and then you make a choice. Now it's, where do you fit with me as the athlete?
Correct.
Or me as the brand? And if you're listening to us this morning and you don't think that's part of the conversation, then you don't know what's going on in college athletics right now, because that's more of the conversation today than it's ever been before. And it may only be the top 3% of the athletes that are having these conversations because they have the name recognition coming into it. But if you don't think that's not going to slowly expand to the top 5% or the top 10% of college athletes over the next 10 or 15 years, then you clearly do not see what's coming straight at you. Yeah. Because, Mo, that is where we are going. We start with the elite of the elite, and then before you know it, that next little lower tier right below the elite are like, well, I'm basically as good as they are. So you lost out on them. Now you want me. What are you going to, that's the conversation, right?
It changes. And don't forget, there was a time when Alabama would get like the top 3 running backs coming out of high school. They'd just be glad to be part of Alabama, like even though they know they would have to compete for playing time. Now some of these guys are going, well, I can go to another school and they're going to give me just as much NIL money and I can start there. And so there's a competition. The LSUs, the Florida States, the Floridas, the bigger schools, SCs, they're going to get the top recruits, but they're getting less and less of them. The piece of the pie has gotten a little bit smaller, and it's going to continue to evolve as we go through this new era of college football. And coaches now, they are going to have to be salesmen, almost entertainers. They're going to have to negotiate. Like you said, there was a time you could walk in there, hey, I'm Jimmy Johnson, coach of Miami. What can you do for Miami? Because we're thinking about bringing you aboard. And now it's, I'm Jimmy Johnson. This is what I can do for you. This is how I can raise your brand. The conversation is completely different. And I think it's going to continue to evolve as we go through this new version of college football.
Let's pivot back to the NFL with Coach Belichick. 24 years. The narrative, Mo, it's fair. I'm not saying it's not fair. It's not going to go away. I think you are correct that he's going to coach somewhere else. And I think that whatever his last team that he coaches with, and it doesn't look like, as of this morning, he's going to have a big market. It looks like Atlanta is a possibility. It looks like Washington is a possibility. But it does not look like he's going to have a huge market out there if he's going to continue his coaching career. But the narrative that he is going to be fighting, wherever he goes to next, can he win without Tom Brady?
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at his coaching career, right now the answer is no. But it's not just no. It's an astounding no. It is multiple different teams with a losing record without Tom Brady. It's not like, oh, we won 73% of our games with Tom Brady, and then I won 54% of my games without him. Clearly, I'm going to win more with Tom because he's the greatest quarterback of all time. That would be fine. What it is, oh, I won 70% of my games with Tom Brady, and I basically won nothing of relevance without him. So I hope for him that wherever he goes to next, and I'm not saying he's going to win a Super Bowl title or compete for Super Bowls. That would be great if he did. But I'm hoping for him he finds winning seasons and playoff appearances to finish off his career, because that will quell the Tom Brady conversation. Because then that conversation shifts from, well, he didn't do anything in New England without Tom Brady, but look at how he finished his career, and then fill in the blank and go from there.
Correct. I'm with you 100%. I think we had this discussion a little bit last week, but that's where I'm at. If Bill Belichick goes to another franchise and he pulls them up and makes them relevant from the ground up, and they go to, let's say they go to multiple conference championships, but don't win them. But he has 5 winning seasons. The team is relevant. They're competitive. They're right there. I think it does quell the he can't win without Tom Brady. And so then that would bolster up his resume. Like, here's a great coach. He moved on from the Patriots and he was successful here. And this is what he did for this franchise. And look, like you said, should he turn around and win one Super Bowl, that wouldn't just quell it. That would be like a slam dunk shutting it down that, yes, he can win without Tom Brady. So, and you're right. I was thinking about this. Obviously, a smaller market. If I was Belichick, his friend is down south anyway. Hey, go to Atlanta, man. Get in that warm weather. Be the guy. Maybe you do get Justin Fields as your franchise quarterback. There's tons of talent there in Atlanta. He could build that up. And in that particular city, because they haven't had success in a minute, not in football, and they've never won it all, it would be a great capper to what's been a great career. But like you said, wherever he goes, that shadow of the GOAT is going to be there on his shoulder.
I would almost, actually not almost, I'm going to argue Washington's a better spot. If Washington is committed to getting Caleb Williams or Drake May. If Washington says we are getting a quarterback in the first round of the draft, we are either going to pick number 2 and take the quarterback that Chicago doesn't take, or we are going to do whatever we need to do to make a trade with Chicago to get the number 1 pick and move up a spot, I think that would be a great spot for Belichick. 1, You're getting the young quarterback in there, the young quarterback who isn't Mac Jones, who he could be. No, you're getting a quarterback in there who he's going to be good. He may not be great or elite like some are projecting. He's going to be good. But more importantly, you're getting a quarterback in there that you don't have to pay. And that's my only issue with whatever team acquires Justin Fields.
This is
true.
true.
You're going to have to pay him. And once you pay the quarterback, we know what it does to the rest of your team. And if you can get Caleb Williams or Drake May and not pay them, and while all this is going on, let Bill build that defense, which is what we know he is really, really good at, while you're not paying the quarterback. When it comes time to pay the quarterback, Bill should be retired right around that time. 4 or 5 years into this,
Sure.
Bill should be hanging it up. At that point, the defense is built, the quarterback is about to get paid, and someone else can come in and figure out what you got to cut to make the team work. And also, if you're looking for the stage, and I think Belichick still wants the stage. I don't know if he wants the irrelevancy of the NFC South. He goes to the NFC East. You got Jerry up there. You're going to eat those games against the Cowboys are always going to be nationally televised games. You got the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you got the Eagles up there. Those are going to be nationally televised games. Plus the fact that you're going to get more nationally televised games because you're Bill Belichick coaching that team, and you have either Caleb Williams or Drake May. And then you have the opportunity as a defensive mind to shut down Dak Prescott, to shut down Jalen Hurts, which, by the way, Mo, we've kind of seen lesser coaches do that to both of them this season. So now you give Bill Belichick, one of the greatest defensive minds of all time, the opportunity to do that. I'm just saying that could set up nicely if the quarterback situation is what it needs to be. If they're unsure about the quarterback situation, if they're not bought in to getting one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, if I'm Belichick, I would say thank you, but no thank you. And I would go to Atlanta, where they're probably going to get Justin Fields, because he cannot, wherever he goes next, he cannot go through not having the guy. He can't. That cannot be how he ends his career, trying to figure out the quarterback situation, because we've seen that for 3 seasons in New England, and it was painful to watch.
And he'd be setting himself up for something he's not known for, and that's failure. If he goes through the whole process of not having a franchise quarterback, he's going to fail on that new franchise, right? And then those voices that said, well, he don't have Brady anymore. I mean, this is life without Brady. This is Bill Belichick without Brady. It wasn't just that the Patriots didn't have talent. Here he is on a new team without Brady, same results, not making the playoffs, struggling. So he is a product of Tom Brady. That's what will happen. You're right. You have to look at what that leadership group is doing in Washington, and they seem to be set up for success if they make the moves that you said, especially from a financial standpoint. It is smarter to go to the Redskins. And when we say don't pay the quarterback, we're just simply talking about he's going to be on that rookie deal. And you milk that rookie deal for all it's worth. If you get a rookie quarterback and he becomes a starter and an instant productive star, and you can max that out, like you said, Chris, before you actually have to pay him. Because once you pay the quarterback, eventually you're going to start losing pieces here and there because you can't pay everybody. So I do agree with you. If the Commanders make the right moves, and you're right, the bigger picture where the spotlight is greater is in the NFC East by far.
In the chat, John Suggs says he thinks that Billy B is going to either the Falcons or the Chargers. I told you, I like the Falcons argument as well. I don't like the Chargers argument, Mo, only for one reason. I think Harbaugh is going there. I think that's the job that Harbaugh wants. I think they want Harbaugh. And if I'm choosing between, if Belichick and Harbaugh both came to the owner of the Chargers and said, hey, we want in, I'm taking Harbaugh 100 out of 100 times.
I am as well.
And that's not a slight against Bill Belichick and what he has accomplished, but Harbaugh is built to bring that team to the Super Bowl year one. Harbaugh goes to that team. They are in the Super Bowl conversation going into next season. Hands down. They are going to be. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but you are going to have plenty of people saying the Chargers are a playoff team, and once they're in the playoffs, they're in the Super Bowl conversation. So I don't think you have that same conversation if Bill Belichick goes there. If Bill Belichick goes there, I think the conversation is they're going to have a great defense. I'm curious what the quarterback does with Bill.
No, we're in total agreement. And look, Jim Harbaugh, for all his quirkiness, he works well with quarterbacks. He has a gift for that and getting the best out of them. And I would say that he's obviously more offensive minded, but he does play a smash mouth type of football. He's very versatile in that way. But I think you're right. If he goes there, they're not playoff contenders; they're Super Bowl contenders. That will be the talk, and it would not surprise me if they were one of the better teams in the AFC. I think the Chargers want him. The question is he going to make the move that we all presume he's going to make?
It would be Christmas morning in Carolina if Pete Carroll decides to be their next head coach. But I will tell you right now, it will never happen because Pete Carroll is a very intelligent man, and he would never put himself in the middle of the dumpster fire that is the Carolina Panthers. That is a terribly run organization with a god-awful owner. And yes, he could do wonders with that organization if he wanted to. I just don't think he would have any interest in going there, Mo, because remember, this is the same organization where they have current employees texting offensive coordinators saying you don't want to be a part of this.
Right.
Don't come here. They're gonna ask for an interview, which by the way, Carolina has asked for a lot of interviews. They're not going to get their first, second, or third choice because the cat's out of the bag, Mo. We know what's going on in Carolina, and it's not anything that people want to be a part of.
Pete Carroll would not want to work for that owner, first of all. Let's start there. The owner alone is going to repel Pete Carroll or repel any top-tier coach. Bill Belichick doesn't want that. No, I don't see that happening. You're right. They're going to get somebody that they will claim this is the guy we were after all the time. And in reality, it's not. If you're really trying to right the ship of your franchise, then you would look at Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, of course, Bill Belichick, and none of those three are interested in that. Look, if I'm Pete Carroll, I'd much rather stay the advisor to the Seahawks than go be part of the Carolina Panthers.
And Mo, let's not forget, there's a big difference between an organization that just isn't good as far as the quality of the product you're putting on the field, as far as the quality of the head coach and general manager you have in place that are making football decisions that impact what's going on in the field. That's one type of dumpster fire. Another kind of dumpster fire is an owner who's throwing drinks at fans, an owner who is being classified as creating a hostile working environment for everybody in the building, an owner who has been accused of harassment and being verbally abusive to people. That's the dumpster fire Carolina currently has, on top of the fact they don't have a good team.
Right.
So it's both worlds. In
them not having
Carolina.
A good team is a footnote, right?
Correct.
That's the funny part. The footnote is they don't have a very good team. But you start with leadership or lack of leadership starts at the top, and their owner, he's a mess by himself.
And I do think Pete would love the opportunity to go to a program or a team like Carolina who is a mess on the field. I don't think he wants to deal, because what does he need? He needs control. He needs to walk into a situation and be, I'm the guy, and I'm going to put my system, and that's not Carolina. So if he were to be lured out of whatever cushy, high-paying gig he has right now with Seattle, it would have to be for a gig where he's going to be given the control that he thinks he's going to need to be effective in that franchise. Because remember, he didn't leave Seattle as a losing coach. He left Seattle during a time of transition where they just missed the playoffs a couple times over 3 years. So he isn't going to go back into coaching, if that's even what he wants to do, Mo, and put himself in a spot where he's going to lose for a couple of seasons because he's putting himself in a situation that's very challenging to overcome.
Right.
If he does want to coach, he's going to have opportunities. If Pete Carroll reaches out to 3 teams tomorrow and says, listen, between me and you, the guy you got there right now isn't the guy. If Pete Carroll called Chicago this morning and said, listen, you guys are funny with this keeping Eberflus thing. Let's have a conversation about me being your next head coach. Are you telling me Chicago's not going to listen? Of course,
they're going
Chicago
to
is
have
going
that
to
conversation.
listen.
Yes.
They're going to have that conversation, and that's what Pete Carroll brings to the table. He is the guy where if he calls you and says, I would love to coach your team, there are very few teams that are going to be like, Pete, we appreciate the phone call, but we'll catch you next. No. Most teams are going to take the phone call. So if he wants to coach, Mo, I think he's going to have that opportunity. Obviously, we don't really know where his mindset is right now. We know that he didn't want to leave his current coaching gig. That's been very apparent, but we don't know if he wants to be out of Seattle either. He might just love that team and want to be around that team and be around those guys. So we'll see what comes from that, Mo. But let's transition a little bit now to the NBA. In the midst of everything that's gone down the past 18 hours, oh, by the way, Kawhi Leonard got paid. 3 years, $152 million for a guy who, if you just mention his name to a casual NBA fan, they're going to say things like load management, never plays, hurt all the time. Is he currently hurt? Those are the things they're going to say. 3 years, though, Mo, 152. What do you make of the deal? Was this the logical place to go? Were we going to get here regardless?
I think because they're moving into that new arena, I believe next season, the owner was thinking ahead. You do have to put bodies into those seats, right? You do have to have a reason for your season ticket holders to come out. And when he's healthy, he is a top 10 player when he's healthy. And currently right now, if you're watching the Clippers and you're watching how he's playing, this is what he can do when he's on the court. The question has always been with Kawhi is how often he is available on the court. What is that thing? The best ability is availability. If you rate players on availability, he's one of the worst. But as a talent, as a player, he's one of the best in the NBA. I think that the owner just thought, I've got to find a way to still bring people to this new arena, and then eventually it'll pay for itself. So I think him being re-signed, it didn't surprise me. It is a short deal, but it's a big deal, right? 3 years, 150. That's crazy. And I'm expecting at some point they're either going to extend Paul George as well. If they don't extend Paul George, they're going to move on from Paul George.
And that is the next logical domino to fall. If you lock up the 1 star, you need to lock up the 2nd star, because 1-star teams are no longer a thing in the NBA.
No.
If you look at the recent success and the recent NBA champions, you need at least 2. So you locked up 1, and now the question is going to be what happens with Paul George. And if I'm Paul George, I texted my agent and said, get ready. That offer better be coming in, because if you don't hear about something soon, you're going to start saying, well, wait a minute. Maybe he isn't going to get locked in. Maybe he isn't going to get the deal, and maybe he isn't number 2 on that squad. And no, stop it. James Harden is not it. You people out there, well, lock in. No. That's not where we're going with this conversation. We're just saying that Paul George might not be the 2. That's all, right, Mo?
Right. And look, at the end of the day, they may very well choose to move on from Paul George. I don't think that's the plan. I do think eventually you're going to hear about him signing an extension. It would surprise me if he didn't, because like you said, the 1-star thing, that's long over. You don't do we've got 1 star and we're one of the better teams in the league and we'll win a championship. Not in this NBA. If you don't have at least 2 stars, you're not winning. Period. Some teams think they need 3 stars. So we're just in a different era of basketball. So I completely understand why Ballmer made the move that he made. He's trying to put people into those seats, and you have to have stars to do that.
Mo, we have the wild card weekend upon us this weekend. Everything that's happened the previous 18 weeks of football no longer matters. I am a big proponent of one playoff win goes a long way to erase a lot of questionable things that took place during the NFL season. On the flip side of that, one playoff loss exasperates things that happened during the NFL season. So it's a double-edged sword without question, but there are going to be a handful of teams this weekend that are going to be looking to get that one playoff win, and then whatever happens after that, they made the playoffs, they won a game, and like we talked about a few weeks ago, there are very few teams in the playoffs right now that would be crushed if that was just their playoff resume. We made the playoffs, we won a game. For about 2/3 of the teams in the playoffs,
that's great.
That is a successful season.
Right.
That is enough. Maybe disappointing because you thought you could go a little further, but no one's getting fired. No one's getting criticized. No one's saying the season was a failure for about 75% of the playoff field if that's what happens. We know what the other quarter is. We know the teams where if it's one playoff win and you lose, that's not going to be enough, but we don't really got to talk about them yet, because most of them have buys. So let's talk about who is playing this weekend. And let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are a big favorite going into this game. They are actually the biggest favorite of the weekend. Right now, the line is 10 points in favor of the Buffalo Bills. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I know I don't believe TJ Watt is playing in this game. But for me, this has nothing to do with Pittsburgh and everything to do with Buffalo. I don't care about Josh Allen's ceiling. I care about how he has been playing the last 6 or 7 games. And how he has been playing is reckless. And I don't think that's going to change, Mo. I don't think he's magically going to hit the playoffs and stop turning the football over. This game is going to be predicated on whether the turnovers hurt the Bills to the point where they can't overcome them. That is going to be what decides this game. Can the Steelers take advantage of the turnovers that they're going to create against Josh Allen? If they can, the Steelers are going to win this game. If they cannot, the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game. And Buffalo fans, and rightfully so, are going to say, hey, you get the good with the bad, but we won, baby. That's how it's been in Buffalo, right? That's the Josh Allen roller coaster ride. And again, I'm not one, and you are not one either, to criticize wins. So if that's how it is, and he's going to have a pick and a fumble, and you're still going to win by 8, then I guess I can't say much about it. Now, can I, Mo? But no. I will continue to say, because I wholeheartedly believe this, there is going to come a point in this playoff run where you lose, not because you lost to a team that was better than you, but because of the turnovers. I don't think it happens this week, by the way. My pick is going to be Buffalo here, because I think Buffalo is a better team than Pittsburgh. But I think we're going to see more reckless Josh Allen. And I think on Monday of next week, Mo, you and I are going to be saying, man, he had 2 really dumb plays and 3 really great plays. And they won because of those 3 really great plays.
And I'm going to pick the Bills as well, but I think it's going to be a competitive football game. I think it's going to be a good football game. I think the Steelers are going to be right there. So but we don't criticize wins. You take the win. That's the bottom line. And they will advance into the playoffs. So I expect them to win, but I think it's going to be competitive. I will say this: if it's close going into the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh's not the one that's going to feel pressure.
Nope.
And that'll be interesting. So if it's close going into the fourth, all bets are off.
And we have seen this season, when it's close, Pittsburgh more often than not gets the play on defense. That is what has carried this team. This is a team that feeds off of what they do defensively. So you can say what you want about the Bills offense. You can say what you want about the Bills defense. I really think this game is going to be predicated on the plays that the Steelers defense makes or doesn't make. And I think that's where we're going to see this game kind of change. And like you said, Mo, if we get 8 minutes to go in the game and it's a 1-score game, that's not the position the Buffalo Bills want to be in. I'm sorry. Josh Allen, I know he has closed games out in his career. He has plenty of comebacks to his credit, but nothing about what I've seen out of Josh Allen this season tells me that I'm comfortable up 3 or down 3 with Josh Allen in the ball late in the fourth quarter. I'm not comfortable in that situation.
I'm not either. I need that cushion.
Because you know what happens, Mo? If they're up 3 late in the game, they're going to run. They're going to run. If it's 3rd and 1, they're going to do the push. And then it's going to be a first down, and they're going to run, and they're going to run. And then if it's 3rd and 6, you know what's coming. They're not going to run. They're not going to say, defense, go win this game for us. They're going to say, Josh, go seal this game. And that's the part that scares me. I don't need Josh Allen sealing games in the fourth quarter by throwing the football. I would be much comfortable saying, run it, take another minute off the clock, punt it, and let the defense seal the game, because they have a good defense in Buffalo.
They do.
I would feel better as a Bills fan seeing that play out instead of it being 3rd and 7 and you're thinking to yourself, oh dear God, and he's in the shotgun and you're saying, oh dear God, let it be a design run. Don't let him throw the ball here. Because again, and you look at the Miami game at the last week of the season, 9 seconds to play in the half, no timeouts left. Where does that ball have to go? It has to go in the end zone. You throw it 2 yards short on a crossing pattern or on a slant because your thought is he's going to get there. Well, he didn't get there, Mo. You don't throw that ball. That's 3 points you took off the board because you thought the combination of you and your guy could make a play. That's the stuff that Josh Allen does. And he did it a week ago where you look at it and you're like, come on. And you would think that over time, he would get better with those kind of decisions. Kind of like you would think over time, Mike McCarthy would get better at situational football decisions. But yet they both have these moments where you're like, what are we doing? Why? The only place you can put the ball is the end zone, and you chose, because he had all day to throw. It's not like he was getting sacked and he just got rid of it. He chose to throw it 2 yards short, and the defense made a play.
More times than not, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you know what? If you're an NFL fan, if you watch a Buffalo Bills game, you're going to say this multiple times. What is he doing? Why? What does he think? It's part of the Josh Allen experience, and I'm not bagging on him because he is a special talent. But if the Bills want to go on a deep run, they need to put together a game plan or an effective game plan like they did versus the Cowboys, where they really committed to the run and they ran and they ran and they ran.
And stick to it.
And stick to it. Even when they get stopped, come back to it again and make Josh Allen a complement to the run game.
We have the Browns and the Texans. We're all about stories here, Mo. So do I think that the Texans are probably going to win this game and they have the better team on paper? Yeah, maybe, sure. But none of that matters to me because I need to see the Browns play the Ravens. I need to see that unfold in front of my eyes. And the only way that happens is if the Browns keep moving on in the playoffs. So I'm taking the Browns to knock off the Texans because I want to see Flacco in Baltimore as a Cleveland Brown knocking the Ravens out. I need to see it. I'm already signed up for it. I need it to happen.
I'm here for it. I'd love to see that because that is the stuff that movies are made of. But my gut instinct is CJ Stroud is not going to let that happen. So I'd love to see it happen, but I'm going to take the Texans to win because I think CJ Stroud is a special talent.
The Miami Dolphins are heading to Kansas City for the Tyreek Bowl. It's going to be cold there, Mo, in case you were not aware of this. This has been talked about at nauseum this week. I talked a little bit with Gene about this yesterday. I'm not going to get too much into it with you, but yes, the weather is going to be a part of it. Yes, there is something to Miami having lost 10 straight games in games that are less than 40 degrees. But like I said yesterday, let's not just pretend they were playing crappy teams during that 10-game stretch and they were just losing to teams that they should have beaten. They were playing good teams. Mo, That's what happens this time of year when it gets cold out. You usually play good teams. And by the way, they were in the division with the Buffalo Bills, who they can never beat regardless. Oh, and some of that was the Tom Brady New England Patriots, his last couple of years there.
Sure.
So let's digress a little bit. That being said, it is going to be a cold game. You are looking at a team that both of these teams are facing narratives they don't want to face if they lose. For the Dolphins, it would be a collapse, losing their last 2 games of the season and then not getting a playoff win. For the Chiefs, a loss would be the period on a tumultuous season where the offense never really seemed right. And then they go and they lose a home playoff game, which is unheard of if you are Patrick Mahomes. I think this is going to be a close game. Remember, Dolphins lost 21-14 in Germany earlier this season. I think we're going to see what we've seen from these teams. I think we're going to see an up and down performance by the offense, which hopefully will be a little bit healthier for Miami. I think we're going to see a Kansas City Chiefs team that at most is going to score 21, 24 points. And I think it's going to be a 24, 21, 23, 20 kind of game. I'm going to go Miami because that's what you do when your team is in the playoffs. Would I be surprised if Miami lost this game? Absolutely not. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. And I think this is going to be a game that comes down to a couple of big plays in the fourth quarter. Can Tua make a throw in the cold weather? Can Mahomes' receivers hang on to the ball? I think that's what we're going to be talking about Monday morning with this game. Is it's going to be a moment from the fourth quarter that kind of turn this one way or the other.
I also think that what won't get talked about as much leading into the game is because of the weather. I do think that the team that's able to run the ball to some degree will have an edge. I'm actually going to go with the Dolphins because of Raheem Mostert. I'm going to go with the Dolphins because of their running game. I actually think that he can be a huge factor, not just as a running back, but in the screen game. You don't have to throw the ball 30 yards down the field in the cold. You don't need to. Not if you can be effective in the intermediate route. So I think that Tua takes what he can get. And if the big opportunity is there, he'll go for it. But the weather says you just have to be effective in the short routes. And if you have to go nickel and dime your way up the field, 8 yards, 6 yards, then you nickel your dime up the field. And guess what? By nickel and diming your way up the field, you also keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. So I'm going to go with Miami in a close game. And I just think they'll find a way to pull it out. This is not a slight against Patrick Mahomes. It never is. It never is. I'm just saying that I'm going to give the edge to the more talented team, I think. And I'm going to give the edge to, I think, an underrated running game.
And let's not forget what Raheem Mostert did in the playoffs a couple of years ago with the San Francisco 49ers. He has playoff experience. He has experience in these situations. I don't recall if that game was in Green Bay or if it was in San Francisco. I want to say it was in San Francisco. It could have been in Green Bay, though. If it was in Green Bay, it further proves my point that, cold weather.
Cold.
Right. So I'm just saying. But the Dolphins have had a consistent running game this season. And Mostert is trending towards playing in that game. So it should be interesting. The Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys, it is Mike McCarthy's old team coming to play his current team. I think this is going to be the most lopsided game of the weekend. I think the Cowboys are going to smack them. I really do. I think it might be close early, and I'm not taking anything away from the Packers or Jordan Love. This team, the Dallas Cowboys, know they need to make a statement at home to open the playoffs. That's number one. The Dallas Cowboys also need to know that Mike McCarthy is their guy, and he may not say he wants this, but he wants this.
Oh, you know he wants.
He wants this. So with all those different levels and Jordan Love's first playoff game, I just think it's all going to line up and spell a nasty loss for the Green Bay Packers.
I think the Dallas Cowboys front seven is going to control this football game. I do, on defense. And I think because they're front, they'll be able to get pressure with just rushing 4. It's going to open up opportunities for the DBs to jump on some routes. So I'm going to go Dallas. I think they win fairly easy. It might be competitive early, but I'm going to go Dallas as well.
I like the Rams over the Lions. It's going to be, I guess it's going to be an upset in theory because of seeding, but I don't know if it's really going to be an upset in the minds of a lot of people. I think the Rams are the second best team in the NFC heading into the playoffs. And I think it will be close because the Rams are a flawed team.
Sure.
They're going to give up points to the Lions. This could end up being a shootout. It could be like a 31-28 kind of game. But I think the Rams are going to win this game.
If it's a shootout, I got the Rams for sure. And look, the Rams are flawed in the sense that sometimes their O-line doesn't hold up as well. So I always start off every conversation is if Stafford is standing upright and he can launch, you're going to get picked apart. It's as simple as that. But they are bolstered by the fact that the O-line, they're actually a very good run offensive line, and they have a terrific running back there. So you're asking me to choose between Stafford and Goff. I like Goff. Stafford's better.
No team needs to win this weekend more than the Philadelphia Eagles. Having lost 5 out of 6 heading into the playoffs, a playoff win is going to correct a lot of that. I don't think they get it done, though.
What?
I think that it's going to be close early. And I think that the longer the game stays close, the more you're going to see Philly unravel. Because I don't think this team has it together enough to go through. Now, on paper, Philly should win this game.
Sure.
But on paper, Philly should have beat the Giants. On paper, Philly should have beat the Cardinals. On paper, the first game with the Giants shouldn't have been as close as it was. We're over that. We're over saying on paper, Philly should do this or Philly should do that because we know what the end result is going to be. The end result is going to be a close game. And when it's going to be a close game against a team like the Bucs, who are playing all out because no one thought they were going to be in the playoffs. No one thought they were going to win the division. No one thought Baker was going to win more than 5 games. And you have a Philly team who is on the brink of one of the greatest collapses in NFL history, going from 10-1 and what looked like destiny to be the number 1 seed with a first-round bye to losing 5 out of 6, limping into the playoffs, losing their division in the process. And now they have to play a scrappy wildcard game on the road. I think they're going to lose. I think it's going to be close, but I don't think they're going to win.
And I've been on the Baker train with you the whole ride.
You're not jumping off now, are you, Mo?
I don't want to jump off, but just hear me out. I think you make a great point. If it's a tight, close game, who feels the pressure? It'll be the Eagles. They'll feel that pressure, and they may very well wilt. I'm going to go with, I think the Eagles come out, and I think they jump on the Bucs early, and I think they win without the stress of it being close. All right, let's just say that they win in a comfortable fashion. So while I love the Baker train, and I would like to have picked the Baker train, I think I'm going to have to hop off the train on this one.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. What a great Thursday here, Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show, but don't worry. We got one more day left in the week. We are back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Mo, close us out, sir.
Hey, thanks for everybody in the chat. We appreciate your support all the time. Thanks for everybody that's watching us right now and who will watch us later. Check out all the great content we have for you guys on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. Make sure you are here with us as you close out the week with Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
I mean, you can see right now without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, from Brooklyn.
Hey, you guys any